The history of Bharatanatyam itself has been reimagined to make it seem like it was always an upper caste dance form. When we're living in India, we can't escape caste. Classical dance, unfortunately, is no exception to that. The origins of classical dance have come from a community called the Isai Velala community, a very talented lower caste group of individuals, of artists, to which Devadasis belonged. Devdasi, the word literally translates as Deva as in God and Dasi as in servant. So they were servants of the gods. They used to perform their dance form in the temples and also offer other services to the temple. These women were very educated and very, very well respected. They were able to receive land grants. They were not required to be married. They were considered to be auspicious, forever auspicious, because they were symbolically dedicated to the temples and therefore married to the deity. So they weren't required to be married to mortal beings, which also gave them quite a lot of sexual freedom, in the sense that they were allowed to have sexual alliances with patrons, although that was not the primary relationship between the patron and the dancer. It was more about the patron being able to support the dancer and being able to give the dancer what she needs to be able to practice the dance form without any distractions. This was the life of the Devadasi. She was very independent. These were very, very different women. Their lively sexual identity was never something that was scrutinized much until the British came. When they saw this lively sexual identity of the Devadasis, I think it contrasted very, very starkly with the ideas of femininity and sexuality that the Victorian women had. You can imagine the Devadasi dancing freely, wearing sensual saris, dancing about love and sexuality and devotion as if they were all the same thing. Then you see the Victorian English woman, corsets and bonnets and gowns and gloves. There was a very stark difference. And I think that this idea of femininity that the Devadasis represented was deeply, deeply uncomfortable for the British. And so they opposed it by saying that the Devadasis were sexually unrestrained, the patrons were unrestrained, the Devadasi system was barbaric. The nationalists who were fighting the British, these nationalists largely comprised of, I'm not saying exclusively, but they did comprise of upper caste men and women who were fighting the British. So they were forced to respond to this allegation of the Devadasis being sexually unrestrained and the natives being sexually unrestrained as opposed to the colonizers who considered themselves to be in control of their sexuality. And unfortunately, what happened was the response that the nationalists had was to sanitize, within quotes, sanitize the dance form. One of the ways in which they did this was to change the content of the narratives of the dance form from sexuality and sensuality and stories about love. The focus shifted to bhakti or devotion. The dance form was gradually and not vindictively, but definitely quite deliberately, the dance form was taken from the Devadasi community and handed over to girls of good families. And these girls of good families were basically girls from Brahmin families. There wasn't an acknowledgement of the consequence of taking a dance form away from a community and handing it over to another. They overlooked the possible ways to rehabilitate a community that you have displaced in such a large way. There are people in the dance community that have been in the past so deeply uncomfortable with this history that over time this history of Bharatanatyam itself has been reimagined. This period of the Devadasis has been called a period of decline, a brief period of the corruption of the dance form. So its history really has been reimagined, where we have a mythical origin. We've tried to connect Bharatanatyam to the Natya Shastra. It is connected, but not the way that these history lessons are taught. We've tried to connect it to Sanskrit. We have tried to draw false connections to the origins of Bharatanatyam to an upper caste origin. By doing that, I think we've done a big disservice to history. We've done a big disservice to the Devadasi community, and it's an inaccurate explanation of where the dance form came from.